Hello, and welcome to the MMQB NFL podcast. That's Albert Breer. I'm Conor Orr. We're coming to you Thursday, January 22nd at 9 a.m. to talk about the conference championship games, which, holy smokes, we're already here. We got Denver and New England on one end, and we have Seattle and the Rams on the other. Essentially what I wanted, I would have swapped out the Patriots for the Bills, but this is pretty close to what I would have asked for if I could break down the entire situation and pick exactly what I wanted.
Well, and a healthy quarterback, right, for Denver?
Yeah, I think that's part
Although
of
this
it.
kind of makes it interesting, too, because I think this is border. Did anybody find a precedent for this? Because, I don't like Nick Foles, Jeff Hostetler, Kurt Warner, Tom Brady. Those are all either before the season or earlier in the season. I think the latest one of the injuries there was probably either Phil Simms or Carson Wentz, right? And those were in December, so those teams still had a chance to reset. I can't think of a scenario like this. Frank Reich, in 1992.
You said Jeff Hostetler, right?
Yeah. So Jeff Hostetler, I'll look it up. But Phil Simms, I believe, got hurt. I want to say Phil Simms got hurt in December of that year. So Hostetler had played, Hostetler was their quarterback in the playoffs. This is different than that. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'll look at it. So 1990, Phil Simms, which they beat a really good Buffalo team. Yeah, Phil Simms' last game was week 15. So that was December 15th. So Jeff Hostetler's runway that year was... And again, thank you to Pro Football Reference for making all of this so easily searchable. Jeff Hostetler started 2 regular season games at the very end, and then was their quarterback in the playoffs.
Okay.
So that was relatively close. Carson Wentz, I have to look this up, but I think Carson Wentz was injured right around the same time. And he was an MVP candidate in 2017. I think he was, so his last game was December 10th. So Foles was their starter for the last 3 regular season games. So this is markedly different than those. Tom Brady was right after 9/11. So it was in September that Drew Bledsoe got hurt. And Kurt Warner, that Trent Green-Kurt Warner thing, Trent Green got hurt in camp in a preseason game, So these were, examples of teams winning Super Bowl backup quarterbacks, but not quite the same as this one. This one would be pretty impressive if they could pull it off.
Yeah. But here's the thing, though, and you and I talked about this a little bit, and I don't want to belabor the point, but I still don't see, this is going to sound ridiculous, but I don't see a massive gap between 7th-year Jarrett Stidham and 2nd-year Bo Nix. Is that crazy to say? If Stidham played the way that he did for a middling Raiders team in that playoff game, they go to the Super Bowl and they might even be, whatever, a 1-point underdog or 1.5 point underdog in that game.
So we've had this argument before, and we've I think the first 3.5 quarters you're probably right.
Yeah.
The thing I think Bo Nix hasn't gotten quite enough credit for is that number, the 7 fourth quarter comebacks, which I believe, again, is a franchise record for a franchise that had Peyton Manning and John Elway, right? So 7 fourth quarter comebacks in a single season, and then an 8th fourth quarter comeback against Buffalo. I think that's not happenstance. He wasn't just on the scene for those. You know what I mean?
Right.
He made big throws, and a lot of those games, I still can't get the throws he made in that Giants game out of my head. That throw to Mims that he made in the 4th quarter to bring Denver back on Saturday was unbelievable. You know what I mean? That was a downfield, small window throw. So Nix has made big plays. My question is going to be can Jarrett Stidham do that? If the Broncos can muddy the game up and get it to the 4th quarter, can Stidham make the plays that he needs to make at the end of the game? But Sean Payton has shown an ability to do this. To me, the best example was Teddy Bridgewater coming in 2019 for him.
Yeah.
When Drew Brees got hurt. So Teddy Bridgewater was 5-0. Okay. He completed 68% of his passes, 1,384 yards, 9 touchdowns, 2 picks, and his quarterback rating was 99.1. So, I'm not saying Jarrett Stidham is Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater was a first round pick. Stidham was a 4th round pick. But I mean, I just know the people who've been around him and who've coached him have a lot of confidence in him. I'll read, if you want, I can read a text from someone who's worked with him, where he said, love Stiddy, athletic, smart, accurate, very similar play style to Bo, will move and make plays off schedule, but has talent to stay in the pocket and make all the throws. And then, he cited a couple of games that he's played. There was one.
Who's that? Mel Kiper's texting you? Is that Mel Kiper?
It's not Mel Kiper, but it's somebody who's worked with Jarrett Stidham, and we've seen flashes from him. New England was gonna go with him in 2020, and I think they might have if COVID didn't happen. And COVID happened, of course, and so that cost Jarrett Stidham the spring, which this is coming out of Brady, right? So they lose Brady to Tampa, and they didn't do anything. They didn't sign anybody. They didn't make any move to replace Brady. They were essentially going with Jarrett Stidham. And then, you lose OTAs and minicamp in the spring, and they got to, I think it was right around the 4th of July, and they wanted more experience. So they signed Cam Newton, and Cam Newton winds up being their quarterback that year. But Stidham's played good in spots. Like when he had to come in and replace Derek Carr, when the Raiders benched Derek Carr in 22, when he came in for Russell Wilson in 23. So I think there's reason to believe he can play well. What I think is an underrated key here is J.K. Dobbins.
Yes.
Because if J.K. Dobbins is in this game, Denver's a little different offensively.
100%.
I looked this up because I love R.J. Harvey, right? But J.K. Dobbins is like a true 3-down back. R.J. Harvey is a little bit more, it'd be like the equivalent for New England. They have Stevenson and Henderson, and their running game wasn't quite the same when Stevenson was out, right?
Right.
It's the same sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like Harvey's a really good player, and you can use him a million different ways, but Dobbins is like the workhorse. And I looked this up. I thought this was really interesting. So he got hurt in their 9th game, right? In 5 of their first 8 games, they had 130 yards rushing or more. And since then, they've only hit that number once. So, I think if J.K. Dobbins adds something to the run game, you have Luke Wattenberg. It looks like he's going to be back, who's a really important piece of their offensive line. You have a chance to manage it a little bit differently.
I'm looking too at, I think, some other numbers here, which are a little bit more important, in that without J.K. Dobbins, we've had a couple disastrous multi-sack games for Bo Nix. So before that, I think the numbers are about similar, but there are fewer games without J.K. Dobbins than with. But you have a 4-sack game in that loss to the Chargers. You have a 3-sack game in a loss to the Raiders. And you have a multi-sack game and a loss to the Chiefs. You didn't give up more than 2 sacks in a game at all prior to that. And he's a little bit more of a banger in the backfield. Like R.J. Harvey's not going to be your dog in pass protection. And I think that that's a big part of it too. I mean, it's a security blanket issue for Bo Nix more than anything,
Yeah. This is a shot. I was just thinking about this when you were saying that. This is a shot for Sean Payton to become a Pro Football Hall of Famer. We talked about that with Stafford, right? Yeah. We've talked about that with Stafford and how Stafford, I think Stafford wins the Super Bowl this year. He's getting a gold jacket, right? I think if he wins the Super Bowl, and maybe he will either way, I think it's going to be more difficult with all these quarterbacks that are in the mix now. Your Eli's, your Phillip Rivers, I presume is Roethlisberger eligible next year, right? I think it is.
Why wouldn't he have been? Oh wait, him and Eli didn't retire.
No. Roethlisberger retired. So I think he's 5 years out next year. So I think he'll be eligible next year. And maybe Roethlisberger's an easier case, but I think it's going to be tough for quarterbacks to get in. I just think once you get past the Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, once you get down to the next level. So is Stafford on that Rodgers Brees tier?
Right.
You know what I mean? And he probably is close now anyway, but if he wins a second Super Bowl, I think he becomes a no doubter. Well, wouldn't you say does Sean Payton become a no doubter if he wins with like in this scenario?
Yeah.
Yeah. You think about it, winning Super Bowl,
yeah.
how many people how many people have won Super Bowls with two teams? No one, right? Am I wrong about that? Well, I've got brain freeze right now. I was just thinking about this. No one, right?
You keep talking, I'll find that out.
And AI will find out for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like winning Super Bowls with multiple teams, doing what he did in New Orleans, which I think was more significant than just winning a Super Bowl. And then, coming back with the Broncos and like winning with a backup quarterback. I mean, it'd be tough to leave him out if that's his case.
So 7 head coaches have taken 2 different teams.
Right. I know there are a lot of those. Parcells, Holmgren.
Andy Reid, John Fox, Mike Holmgren, Bill Parcells, Dan Reeves, Dick Vermeil, Don Shula.
Right.
But if there's the coaches who have won Super Bowls with different teams, if you count there being assistants, but yeah.
That doesn't count.
Yeah.
There's Don Shula. Don Shula wasn't the coach of the Colts team that won Super Bowl 5? He wasn't, right? He was already in Miami.
No. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, I mean, see, now we're doing a history lesson, a Google history lesson now, like live on the podcast, which, I mean, the young kids out there who aspire to be podcasters should be paying attention to this.
Yeah. You guys need to, what you need to do is you need to stretch out your voice. You need to give more pregnant pauses between sentences. It's basically the verbal equivalent of when you were turning in a paper in college and you made the spaces between the lines just a little bit bigger. Or I was always a guy, and this was the biggest hack, honestly. If you're still writing papers, don't use AI, first of all. But the biggest hack, and this will get you a guaranteed half page, okay? Guaranteed. And no one would be able to tell the difference. Control F all the periods in your paper and just increase the size of the periods, nothing else. So if you have 11 font, make the periods 12, and that will jack your paper up at least half a page. I promise you.
Are we going like down the like the Courier New conversation here?
Like Times New Roman, whatever you want to do, Albert. You take that.
But Courier New was the one. Courier New was the one back in the day. Okay, so this is interesting, right? I don't know if I realized this. Don Shula left the Colts in 69 after the 69 season. They won in 70.
Ooh.
So how much pressure must there have been on Don Shula then? I mean, can you imagine the conversation on First Take back then? and then Don Shula wins the Super Bowl in 71 and 72, I think. So yeah, that's but so Don Shula did, but this would give you the chance, this would, if you're the this would, and the new head coach, by the way, that won, I was like, that's what I was stalling here for. Don McCafferty replaced Don Shula and won the Super Bowl. So,
wow. How about that? Well,
Ohio State guy played for Paul Brown at Ohio State. How about that?
Of course.
So I think this is an opportunity for Sean Payton to become a Hall of Famer, and I can't wait to see what this looks like, because I think
they're going to win, Albert. They're going to go to the Super Bowl. They're going to beat the Patriots. So? Yes, I'm so certain of it. I'm so certain of it, because
the minute, like, did you see what Milton Williams said yesterday?
No.
Like, did somebody asked him about Jarrett Stidham, and his response was, let me pull this up here. What do you know? Like, somebody asked him, what do you know about Jarrett
Good question.
Stidham? Here's his answer. Nothing. I ain't going to lie. Nothing. We're going to watch the tape on him and figure out what he likes to do. But no, they didn't like him over Bo Nix. So
there's 2 distinct paths here. If you're New England, which
Denver, how long do you think it took the Broncos to get a hold of that video?
Probably about as fast as it took the Jaguars to get everything that Sean Payton said about them at their press conference. This is a season of unforced errors for everybody. But I listen, and let's do this first, because I was going to talk about the Bills, and we're going to talk about some coaching search updates. But let's do the playoffs first, because we're already comfortably into the groove here. There's two different. Before we get into the kind of the schematics of it, there's two different paths you can take here. And I do think that the emotional is important. Vrabel is a master of this. Sean Payton, I think is good at motivating his own team, but when it comes to dealing with the cross team side of it, I think sometimes does make some unforced errors, like we mentioned before. But if you're Vrabel, do you empower your guys to come out there and say, I don't give a flying what about Jarrett Stidham? Or do you do the complete opposite, which is, I forget what coach made like a living out of this, but would just talk. Well, Belichick was good at it too. Talking about everybody like they're Vince Lombardi. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it could be like that you're like looking to build confidence in your team. And so we don't think much of Jarrett Stidham. Like, I think the opposite happened like on Saturday, right? Like when Sean Payton called a second press conference, to announce to everybody, to announce to the world in the immediate aftermath. I can't remember the last time I saw a coach do that.
Right.
And tell everybody that Bo Nix is out for the season. Well, why did he do it? I think it was to show everybody. And I think this was like good leadership by him. Show everybody we're good with Jarrett Stidham.
Right.
We don't need to PR this. I'm going to get out here and I'm going to tell you, like, we're good. Like we're very disappointed for Bo. It sucks, but like we've got the utmost confidence in Jarrett Stidham. And look, like, I think you can always follow the money on these things, right? If the Broncos didn't think he was much, they wouldn't have given him the contract they gave him.
Right.
They had him in the building for 2 years.
Right.
They brought him in because they knew he could handle the volume of Payton's offense because he had played for Josh McDaniels, which is another interesting twist for this whole thing, both in New England and Vegas. And he was there for 2 years and was really good for Bo Nix over those over the last year. Was important in the like offloading process the year before of Russell Wilson. And they made
offloading process is such a funny way of putting what happened to Russell Wilson and not hurling him out of a cargo jet at 30,000 feet and giving him the middle finger on the way down.
That was another interesting scenario where some things were said that couldn't be taken back. But I think, and that was so predictable, by the way, from the start that was going to be the end. The end of it. But I think, I do think Sean Payton, like with the amount of like the amount of time he spends on that position in particular and has spent on that position in particular as a coach and how much pride he takes in having that position right. And we've seen him invest in the past in backups and with Teddy Bridgewater and Taysom Hill in New Orleans. He has a really good idea of what he wants and what he's comfortable with and who can run his offense. And I mean, I don't think Jarrett Stidham's going to throw for 300 yards. Don't get me wrong, but I think he's going to be competent,
Right.
I think he's going to be competent. And I think like the job of the Broncos offense on Sunday is going to be to drag that game into a dark alley and say, we are going to get into a street fight with you.
Yeah.
And it is going to be 20 degrees out. The altitude is going to be an issue for you. And we are going to turn this into a rough physical game. And in the end, we're going to see if you can stand up to us. And we're going to limit possessions. We're going to force Drake Maye to stand on the sideline for long periods of time. Right. And I think that's going to be the whole game plan is like, let's go on 8, 10, 12 play drives and force them and let's shorten the game and let's lean into our defense. And then I think it kind of like for a defense that's been a little inconsistent of late, then I think for Denver, it comes down to the defense making a couple big plays,
right?
And so to me, that's either picking off Drake Maye, forcing a fumble, a big sack in a big spot. Like, this is on Nick Bonito and Zach Allen and Patrick Surtain and Riley Moss And, all those guys they've invested so much in on that defensive side of the ball.
Yeah. With New England, I look at this as an opportunity because I think that we all stood out there yesterday or last week before the start of that Texans game, excuse me.
Yeah.
And we said, this is going to be the week that, Drake Maye gets picked apart by a great defense. And this is going to be the week that everything kind of comes crashing down on the Patriots. It didn't happen. And certainly CJ Stroud helped in that regard and spotted them an awful lot of opportunities to come back in that game. But I think what we're learning about Maye, and I guess that we've always known about him a little bit, is that he's one of those great quarterbacks that when the plan goes to what, there is always a plan B. That there is always something physically, emotionally, from a skills perspective where you can get them back into it. And I think that we've seen that time a couple times this season, but we're relearning it in real time. And it sucks because I think that their schedule played such a large part in it. But at every step along the way, he's had to reprove. And again, we should look at last year, right? He was playing phenomenal games against really good teams. And the Patriots were god-awful. They were a 4-win football team. And I think that we should have taken the lesson back then. But instead, we wait every week in the playoffs for him to be like, well, what's he going to do now? What's he going to do now?
I mean, there's a resilience, I think that you've seen in spots this year with him where, when things go the wrong way, he doesn't crumble, and I think that's a really important thing for a quarterback. And I actually think that's probably in part a product of, both the 23 and 24 seasons for him. His last year in North Carolina, a lot of things were wrong around him. You remember he had a new offensive coordinator who I don't think was as good as the guy he'd had the year before, went from Phil Longo to Chip Lindsey. They had the eligibility issue with Tez Walker. And this is all stuff that's ancient history now. But he had to carry the team in a lot of spots that year. And then last year, it wasn't ideal. Last year, he had the concussion and he was getting knocked around. And, I think that has built a callus with him, where, and again, the Texans had 5 sacks. I'm looking at it now, 9 tackles for losses. The Texans front was winning that game. And the Texans defense, I would say, the turnovers killed them. Because they kept getting all right, we 2 plays in, all right, we got to go back out on the field. You know what I mean? And eventually that wound up wearing them down. But Maye just kind of kept coming, and so he makes the big throw to Steph down in the red zone. He makes the big throw at the end to clinch it to Kayshon Boutte. You see him make big plays even after he put the ball on the ground a few times. There's a mental toughness to him that I don't know that he's gotten enough credit for. That's really impressive at his age. Now, does it look the same? Are they going to have the same problems blocking the Denver front than they did the Houston front? That to me is going to be a huge part of this game.
It's so weird because Maye has been sacked by far the most out of any quarterback in the postseason at 10, but has one of the lowest pressure rates. And so I think it's teams almost picking their spots against New England because they're afraid to kind of go all out all the time. But this is just interesting. This struck me when I was looking at some of the numbers. So,
and I think part of it too is with Vance Joseph, you're going to see a lot of exotic stuff.
Yes.
And that's a little different than the challenge, I think, against Houston or the Chargers. The Chargers disguise a lot. Houston disguises a lot. I think what you see with the Texans is exotic, all right, the, linebacker's coming, the D tackle is standing in the middle of the field. You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
Yeah. It's so wild, Albert, that in 2025/2026, the year of our Lord, this game is going to come down to Stephon Diggs. It really it's going to come down to he has the largest target share. Do you have
Surtain travel with him?
What's that?
Do you have Surtain travel with him if you're the Broncos?
And then it would almost be
because he doesn't play every snap. That's the other part.
Right.
He doesn't play so you won't see him out there every play. I'll look up his numbers from, I mean, like his snap counts. Like, so yeah, he was 55% play time on Sunday.
Yeah.
And part of that is run blocking, so and that you can really like, but he is so key in the big spots. I'm interested to see the way this looks because Denver's corners, like Moss gets flagged a lot, but Moss is a really good player. McMillan in the slot is a really good player. Like Denver's complete on defense. They just haven't been consistent enough of late.
Yeah.
I mean, for however you want to boil down that game against Buffalo moved the ball. I mean, they scored 30 points despite 5 turnovers, which is pretty remarkable.
The New England or Denver behind Surtain. I mean, like their top 2 corners, but once you get down to Barron and once you get down to Moss, these are guys that, while Barron certainly has some upside and we've seen him make some plays this year, is vulnerable, at least in terms of like the raw stats there. Now, could he come out and have his breakout party game here? There's no doubt.
He's a first round pick. So yeah,
he's a first round pick. I mean, it's absolutely possible. And he's had good games this season. I'm not saying he hasn't had good games. But what interests me, I think, about this is the fact that it really, I mean, I think it's a 25% target share for Stephon Diggs, and then it's Hunter Henry. If you're the Broncos, don't you think that defense is good enough to take both of those guys and just completely eviscerate them and then force New England to do what they haven't been able to do a lot this year, which is run the ball up the middle and just be tough? And I'm not saying the Patriots aren't tough. I'm just saying that aspect of their offense has not been as good as other teams in the NFL.
Yeah. And that aspect, I think, is something that they really thought was going to be a bigger part of their offense coming into the year. What's interesting is I do think that like the last couple of weeks, they've leaned on it more. Like I think they've been more what people thought they were going to be at the beginning of the year, which was like lean a little bit more in the run game, even if it's not working, play into what I think is a really, a defense that has some horses, right? And then have Drake Maye make a few big throws. Like I think their formula has looked a little bit more in the playoffs like we thought it would before the year, even though they're much better than anybody figured they would be.
They just can't get Drake Maye in third and long. Like that's it. I mean, if you look at that Houston game,
right,
it was like 3rd and 10, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 6, or like kind of like a busted play action on 1st and 10, and even then, I think the one play that I'm thinking about, like Maye actually did make it back to the line. I mean, it was barely a sack, but it's one of those things that where they, it sounds simplistic, but especially for him and with that offensive line in particular, it's just, how can you call a game so the worst case scenario is 3rd and 5? And
right.
and it's a double-edged sword, right? Because you're too conservative off the bat to avoid something on the back end. This is going to be a big Josh McDaniels rhythm game too. This is a good coaching matchup, Albert. I'm like really excited. It's not just, there's the Sean Payton factor of it all.
It's Vance Joseph against Josh McDaniels. It's Sean Payton against Zach Kerr / Mike Vrabel. Like there's a lot here. And I think, again, like this is, I'm picking the Patriots to win the game.
Ooh, all right.
The one thing that gives me pause is this does feel to me like it could be the Sean Payton shows us exactly who he is game, and maybe it doesn't look the same against 2 juggernauts from the NFC, but in a one-off, 1-week situation where the other team doesn't know what's coming. And I think that's a key too, right? Like you can talk about how this is Jarrett Stidham's first start, but doesn't that work the other way also? Like there's not tape on what they do. They're going on preseason tape of Jarrett Stidham right now and what Josh McDaniels knows from having worked with him a few years ago, right?
Right.
But I mean, the way I look at it, it's like to some degree, there's an element here for the Broncos of we can hit them with some stuff that they won't see coming because they don't have any tape of what this quarterback can do in our offense.
It's a big, like you said, though, big McDaniels game too, because if you're the Patriots and you've had this mythos of like, we have all this information and we're the information warlords, pull out your Stidham evaluation, pull out all your stuff if you're Josh McDaniels and find, because here's what doesn't change about quarterbacks. Preference, right? And what do you build a game plan around if you're Sean Payton? Preference, comfort level, right? Because the last thing you want him doing is going out there feeling like he's playing left-handed. And so if you're Josh McDaniels, you got to be in that room saying, yeah, he likes to do this on this, and he likes to do that on that. Like, let's have a big like subterfuge Patriots. I'm not going to use the spy word, but like, something like that, like information wars. Let's get into it that way,
Hey, it's going to be really cold on Sunday. Like maybe the headsets will go out.
Ooh. I still have doubts I'm even going to make it there. Let's go over to Seattle.
Be a planes, trains, and automobile situation.
Once planes are canceled, I'm going to watch it.
There's no
couch.
trains or automobiles.
There's no trains or automobiles. I don't love football enough to risk my life driving through the Rocky Mountains in a snowfall. I'd like to see all my kids graduate. So Seattle and the Rams.
Plus, you have to leave like now.
I would have to leave now if I was going to Denver. Yeah. So I better get on that. Seattle and the Rams. This is the game I wanted all along. I wanted round 3. I'm very, very excited that I got it. These teams, this is what you want, right? This is arguably the second best offense in the NFL all year versus the best defense, right? It's like a top 5 passing offense against a top 5 passing defense, a top 5 rushing offense against the best rushing defense in the NFL. All of it. I mean, actually, this is interesting. Second best explosive play offense in the NFL for the Rams. Second best team at preventing explosives in the Seahawks. This is why we do it, and we were blessed enough to get.
Why you lift all them weights?
That's why we lift all those weights, baby. This is, we were blessed enough to get this game twice already, and I think that it's so. Like that makes it better, in my opinion, because these coaches have now downloaded so much on each other, and they're going to go into this game. They're so like every snap carries the weight of all that pressure, and so, I love it.
What I love about this one, this is really interesting to me from this standpoint. This Rams team was built to beat the San Francisco 49ers,
right?
Like this Rams team over the last 3 years or so has been built to combat Kyle Shanahan and the Niners. And so what does that mean? Well, they wanted to get tougher. They wanted to get more rugged, and they're very science centric there. But over the last 3 years, longer practices, more contact in camp. And if you look at how they've drafted and where they've signed guys, they signed Kevin Dotson, they signed Jonah Jackson. That didn't work out, but they did sign him, right? They invest in Kyron Williams. They draft Blake Corum. They draft Jared Verse, Byron Young, Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk. Like their whole thing was getting tougher and more rugged. Puka Nacua is part of that, right? Like, because he is a mother bleeper as a run blocker. The tight ends. So like you've got this team like that. If you took the horns off their helmets, it wouldn't look like the same sort of team
right.
that you saw 4 years ago in a Super Bowl. And it was built to beat the Niners. And I think it's similarly equipped to deal with the Seahawks for those reasons, right? It's almost like you built a team to beat one rival, and now you've stumbled in a solution to deal with another rival. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
I think that's why I think they've got a chance here, against a team I think's got a better roster, right? To go in there and get the game into the last 5 minutes and then lay number 9 down as their trump card.
I love it. I'm looking at, so to me, this game comes down to how tough, whether it's Colby Parkinson, who I think is going to be a big part of this. And, I think it's too much of a platitude to say Puka, but Devontae Adams in a certain respect, where Seattle's going to sit in that too high shell. Yep. And what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to get your receivers the ball with a chance to gain yards after the catch. And you're going to have to hammer them in a way that, you're going to have to break those 2 tackles in the secondary and score against Seattle, because in both games, I want to say the Rams rushing offense was generally non-existent, but that's true for everybody that's playing this team, right? I mean, Leonard Williams and,
Byron Murphy.
Byron Murphy. I mean, this team is impenetrable against the run. And so I'm dying to know what McVay does here, because you either have two options. You can change what you're doing to try to attack, and there is no weakness on this defensive line, but they are uniquely good at shutting down like you said, a Rams offense, a 49ers offense, even though they're not the same.
Yeah.
Do you change what you're doing and try to get that running game going, or do you say, like, this is a Matt Stafford game? You know what I mean?
And it might be. I mean, they're really good on the back end too. Like this is like a very complete defense. And Leonard Williams, DeMarcus Lawrence, Nwosu, Murphy, all those guys up front. And then, I think one of the big keys of the whole thing, in the same way Kyle Hamilton was a key for Mike McDonald in Seattle, is the rookie Nick Emanwari, who more or less allows them to stay in nickel and play it as if it's like a base front against the run. And so this is like where I think the multiple tight end sets are going to be interesting, because do the Seahawks stay in their nickel then, or are the Rams able to force some people onto the field that the Seahawks don't want to put on the field?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, are they forcing the Seahawks to take Tariq Woolen off the field and put another linebacker on the field, or another D lineman on the field? Right? Are you going to be in that scenario? And then are the Rams able to take advantage of it by throwing to their tight ends out of those looks? I just, there's a really interesting like game of cat and mouse when it comes to the personnel that they're putting on the field. Like the Rams putting a certain set of players out on the field. Okay, we're going to put 3 tight ends out there. Are you going to match that? Okay, if you're not going to match that, then we're going to run at you. If you do match that, then we're going to throw to a tight end. I think there's that piece of it that's going to be really interesting to watch, and kind of like one of those things. If you're a fan, like, look at how many tight ends are on the field for the Rams, and then look at whether or not Tariq Woolen is off the field. If Tariq Woolen comes off the field, right, and there's another player for their defensive front who's coming on, then I think that it just changes the dynamic, and so it'll that part of it to me is going to be really, really interesting. And hopefully we didn't lose too many listeners there talking about the third tight end and the third D tackle, or the extra linebacker coming off the bench.
All right, pick it. Let's get the people back. Pick it.
Seahawks. What do you think?
I'm telling Seahawks. Sean McVay. No, you're right. I mean, listen, you're right, because I think I've exhausted all of my Rams excuses. At first, it was like, okay, well, I don't care that they're not playing all that great down the stretch. And then it was, I don't really care that they had to come back and win that game like they did against the Panthers in the playoffs and rip their hearts out, or whatever Matt Stafford said. And then it was, I bet he was saving it all for the divisional game against the Bears. And it took whatever, that breakdown, the miscommunication on the route from Caleb Williams. And I guess you could also say it took literally the most spectacular throw maybe in the history of the NFL playoffs to get this game to overtime. So, I acknowledge that there's two sides
in that
to
way,
it.
I'm like, I'm kind of like, because of the throws he made the last 2 weeks, I'm kind of sad that Caleb, like, nothing against any of the people who made it. Everybody's deserving, but it's kind of like sad that like we don't have Caleb Williams or Josh Allen in this round for all the WTF moments that they give us,
I know. I was going to say this earlier, but just guess for me. There was 4 quarterbacks in the NFL playoffs this year, only 4, that ended up posting a positive EPA per play over the course of either 1 or 2 games that they played.
Who are the 4?
No, how many are left?
Of the 4. Well, obviously, Jarrett Stidham is not one of them.
Correct.
So C, Stafford had the negative plays against the Panthers. Maye has a bunch of fumbles. Is Darnold the only one?
You're correct. Sam Darnold is the only one. And which is hilarious because the Seahawks legitimately tried to get him to not throw at all because of the oblique injury. And, I think he only took 17 dropbacks against the 49ers because they're trying to keep him healthy. Yeah. And if you're the Rams, I mean, that's the thing. We can sit here and we can talk about third tight end and inside run and big nickel. What if Kobe Turner gets a shot right at the rib cage and completely blows up that, it blows up everything, right?
Well, here's the other thing. How big a loss do you think Zach Charbonnet is?
A big one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just think how much you're going to have to lean on Walker now. Walker's been fantastic. I've loved him since he was in college. I think he's and he usually plays his best in the biggest games. And, I think what are you doing to spell him now? Velus Jones is a converted receiver, and I actually looked this up. I think before last week, I have it in my notes. I think it had been over a month since a running back other than Charbonnet or Walker got a carry for them. It was something crazy like that. So those guys have been their entire run game, and rightfully so. If you've got two backs like that, ride them. You know what I mean? But I've got it right here for you. So Zach Charbonnet, again, lots of research happening live on the podcast here. It's pretty cool. Okay, so yeah, here it is. Before he was hurt on Saturday, the last time a back other than Charbonnet or Kenneth Walker carried the ball in a game for Seattle was on December 7th. That's pretty significant, And again, Velus Jones is not Zach Charbonnet,
right?
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, I think that piece of it is interesting. They cannot afford to lose Walker.
I agree. And again, it affects everything, especially now with Darnold the way that he is, how play action dependent they are, the rhythm of everything, being able to run out a fresh back on almost every carry was a major part of, especially down the stretch, what Seattle was able to do.
The gap between the two was not.
No, it was not that big.
Walker's a top 10 back, I think. Ish, right? Somewhere in there. Charbonnet might be top 20. You know what I mean? I think both those guys can really play, and losing one of them is a big deal just because it changes the dynamic altogether.
Who did I pick? I'm going to go to the actual staff picks for this. And the staff picks are good now because it's just two things. I picked Broncos Seahawks. Okay. That's what I went with.
So I guess Patriots Seahawks would be my pick. Although I'd say I'm shaky. I think Seahawks Rams is going to be really good. And maybe I should flip back to the Rams.
Here's the thing. Here's the reason why I regret picking the Seahawks. I just think that either this Darnold thing is a wonderful false flag that is getting teams, just uneasy about everything. And then you want Sean McVay thinking about Jalen Milroe and Drew Lock and what's possible out of that offense. They do have a Jalen Milroe red zone run package, by the way, that they haven't used yet this year. Yeah. Just saying, everybody. Is he even active though, or is he the emergency QB? I don't even remember.
Let me look it up. I got the game book here. He is the third QB. Yeah. So he is not, for people who don't know, that he cannot be part of a red zone package if he's designated the third QB.
So I know that they put one in a training camp. Unfortunately, we just haven't seen it yet. So I don't know. The reason I keep going back to it is if this oblique injury is not a false flag, it just takes one hit. And Chris Shula can dial up that one hit. I mean,
he's got punishers up front.
He does. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We got a little bit more to get to here before we get out of here, though, and that's the fact that we talked about the Bills moving on from their head coach. I mean, this is seismic, and if they would have done it, and again, you can't do it until the season's over. But then, if you're Terry Pagula, you can't make that rash decision because now you're so far behind the eight ball in terms of the rest of the carousel, and you've already had Harbaugh and Stefanski take jobs. We don't know what that would have looked like if that job came open when the two of them were available. But they had a press conference yesterday that was, I mean, honestly, I mean, probably. Well, here's the thing.
It was why a lot of people don't want their owners talking.
Yeah, and I think what Pegula tried to do, I think that there was I
think his heart was in the right place.
His heart was in the right place. Correct. That's what I was trying to say.
He was trying to stick up for Brandon Beane.
He was trying to defend his GM, who, for better or for worse, he has decided is the one that he wants to move forward with. And I don't know if there was a power struggle or whatever you want to dictate it or term it as, but these things happen a lot with coaches and general managers over time. And
well, I mean, just look in this round of the playoffs. You have, I mean, all three of those situations where coaches inherit, like, and in 3 of the 4, it was a coach got fired, a GM didn't, and then the new coach came in and was in an arranged marriage. That was Sean Payton and George Payton in Denver. That was Mike Vrabel and Elliott Wolf in New England. And that was Les Snead and Sean McVay all the way back in 2017 in Los Angeles. The only one that was a little different was I wouldn't categorize John Schneider as the same, because John Schneider won a Super Bowl and like it was just time with Pete, So that was not the same as the other 3, but that was another arranged marriage. You know what I mean? So like I think you can see in the conference championship round, this happened. This is not rare that this happens.
Right. Yeah. I don't.
But I think I'll just take the mantle from you there for a second, Connor. I think I had 2 thoughts coming out of this. Right. Number one, and why this looks so bad. Number one is the obvious. The dude's still on your roster. I'm talking about Keon Coleman, right?
Yeah. So set the table for those who didn't see it.
So basically somebody asked about Keon Coleman. Brandon Beane started to answer the question. And then Terry Pegula jumped in and basically said that that was the coaching staff's call. Brandon Beane was being a good team player. Since video evidence has come out.
Oh my God. That's the best part.
That Brandon Beane was on board with Keon Coleman. So, and to be fair, Brandon Beane didn't ask Terry Pegula to do that, so this is the owner, like sort of saying something he shouldn't have said. And now Brandon Beane's, I think, holding the bag for it. But like that. So regardless, now you got this player on your roster who the new coaching staff might come in and love him and want to work with him and everything else. But you've got a hurdle to overcome that was you built that hurdle yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you put that hurdle there. So that's number one. And then number 2, I just think it just felt like kicking a guy when he's down, didn't it?
Well, I think my number 2 is that the Keon Coleman thing was bad, but I think almost as bad, if not worse, because this has far larger ramifications, is the fact that Pegula basically admitted that this was an emotional decision made in the aftermath of a Broncos loss. And what did the Broncos loss come down to? A call from an official that we've been arguing about in perpetuity for the last week. You know what I mean? And so it's like, if you're the new head coach coming in and I'll just tell you this, like, people are bum rushing the door like it's, free, what is it? A free Slurpee day at 7-Eleven, like everybody's coming.
Never been to free Slurpee day at 7-Eleven.
Oh, it's great.
I gotta take my kids there.
Every year.
My kids love Slurpees.
It's on July 11th, 7-Eleven. You go.
Oh, is that right? So free Slurpee. Oh my man, it must be mayhem.
On 7-Eleven. Yeah, it's great. It's you just like, I mean, just the thrill of walking into a place. Now, I used to steal stuff from like CVS when I was younger, and there's like gets you jacked up. But the closest thing that you can get to as an adult is to walk in there with all your kids, fill the cups, and just nod at the guy at the register and just walk right out of there. It's great, man.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much money you have. The thrill of free stuff is always, it's like, never expires.
Unbeatable. It's unbeatable. It's
Like when
just,
I do shows at the Super Bowl and I get that like free, like that little gift bag.
oh yeah.
It's like you may only like 2 of the 6 things that are in the gift bag, but
Mhm.
man, does it feel good to have those 2 things for free.
It does. You just I like not paying for stuff. But yeah, I mean, listen, Albert, this is one of those things that a coach is going to look at that's coming in and say, okay. And now Pagula is going to learn from this. Woody Johnson learned from it. What have we heard from Woody Johnson all year? Squat after
Yep.
the Robert Saleh thing and how that ended, right? He had one kind of unforced error with Justin Fields and kind of throwing him under the bus at owners' meetings. But other than that, we've heard nothing from Woody Johnson after Woody Johnson became an unmitigated disaster. And Pakula is not Woody Johnson. I'm not comparing the two. But he had a bad moment. And then what happens after you have a bad moment? You course correct and you become the poster child of patience, of pragmatism, and of staying out of the shit. Basically,
Yep.
this is what owners do, right? Owners go from bad to good to good to bad to bad to good. They're always going to be meddlesome and ridiculous. Like, I bet if I had to make a prediction, we probably have a David Tepper moment coming at some point. Like, because that guy can't help himself because he's a billionaire, right? And all these
Yep.
guys are rich beyond their wildest imagination. So they can put the lid on it long enough to get the job done. And this is what they need to do. They need to get the job done. But I don't know, Albert, like, who are they going out and getting right now? I mean,
And that's the question. So I believe Dayball and Lou Anarumo are in there today.
yep.
Joe Brady was there yesterday. Anthony Lynn is on their list. So there is like I'd say like they've requested Grant Udinski. Like there's a little bit of a familiarity bent there, and that like they
Yeah.
had Lynn, they had Brady, or they still have Brady. They had Dayball.
Do you think that
So
they're having a lot of those old guys in though to basically tell them the truth about themselves a little bit? Like, I mean, I know,
could be like it's information gathering.
yeah, it's like, hey,
Well, like so, like Lou Anarumo is going to go in there because he like did a really good job against Josh Allen when he was in Cincinnati, and give them like, hey, here's what we were looking at. It could be,
yeah,
I think that could be a part of the equation. I just can't shake and look, like there's a couple guys I'm sure that they're going to put in for with the teams that are still in it, right? It's kind of interesting. I believe Josh McDaniels spent some time with them during their I don't want to stir the pot here, but like I think he's got a relationship with Sean McDermott. I think he did spend some time with him during his year out. So like, do they like ask about Josh? You know what I mean? That would be an interesting one.
Josh McDaniels getting a third head coaching job after the season would be stunning.
I'm not suggesting.
I know you're not,
but I think like okay, like so like there's one Nathan Shielhaas.
Yep.
With the Rams is still in the playoffs. Davis Webb is one that's been bandied about. Like he's still in the playoffs. So I think like the bottom line is what I'm trying to say here is like Clint Kubiak, I think they're gonna look at guys who are still in the playoffs that maybe out of respect to those teams they didn't put in for them yet. But I would expect that like come Sunday night, Monday morning, we'll probably hear about a couple of those. Listen, like we talked about this earlier in the week, right? I mean, call the Colts about Shane Steichen. Call the Vikings about Kevin O'Connell.
They just re-signed Brian Flores. How much yeah.
I mean, all they can do is say no. Yeah. All they can do is say no. And like I think this is too important not to do those things,
It's crazy because when I tweeted the O'Connell thing because I think
call Kirk Cignetti.
What's that?
Call Kirk Cignetti.
He's out having a beer right now. He's unavailable. That's what he said.
How about Nick Saban?
Nick Saban. That would be
great. God, would that be great?
Nick Saban's too busy complaining about the exact college landscape that he created.
I mean, for the theater, would Belichick be the best hire?
So it was funny because
just for the theater of it, like
I go around. Yes, there's no question. I mean, there's absolutely no question. And so in the aftermath of this, I mean, you know how it is, Albert. You're calling everybody that might know something, right? And you're going through every possible scenario, and it's like, okay, well, one person, oh yeah, they could, they could trade for him. One person, yeah, I like this guy, this guy fits. And then I think it was about 5 or 6 calls in post McDermott that someone said, what about Bill Belichick? And I said, stop. That's how it's like, oh, on season 3 now it's like instead of just being like a normal person, like
this?
the FBI is breaking it. It's like we're too far through the looking glass right now.
I don't want this to happen because I love my alma mater and I love our defensive coordinator. But what about Bill with Dayball and Patricia as his coordinators?
What about Dayball with Bill as his coordinator? Here's the other thing, just sort of a peek behind.
I mean, I honestly like just how great that would be. You know what I mean? Like, and I mean, like Bill coming back up here, the icy stare into the owner's suite. Like, it's just.
I mean, if you were Bean and you said, like you go to Pagula and you say, I don't know if this is going to work, but what I can tell you is that no one would talk about us more. Like in the first 2 years of our stadium, like we would probably be sold out. We'd be on First Take. We'd be the lead item on First Take every morning. And it would be like
it would be incredible.
The CBS News equivalent of being, if we can't be serious, let's be viral kind of thing. That would be my guess.
Yeah. I mean, I consider myself kind of an agent of chaos anyway, because I like covering things like that, So I mean, it would be. I mean, like it's just incredible.
I mean, that would be.
I don't know if it'd be the right hire, but it would be incredible.
This is not unlike last year.
Western New York would get a new queen.
Oh, stop it. That's talk about like just the worst case scenario. Just the worst case. Here's the thing that I got like upset about it last year when the whole Deion Sanders discourse was taking over, and it's like, oh, Deion Sanders is going to be the head coach of the Cowboys. We're already so dumb as a society. We're so dumb. And football is one of the last bastions of like meritocracy, intelligence, like game planning, genius, grit. And I feel like just having like that sideshow, and I'm not saying that Belichick isn't smart. It's just like making that decision would probably just be like, okay, then I'm going to go to Stanford and cover World Wrestling Entertainment at this point because it's all the same. That would be I would give up. I would throw my hands
Stanford's sort of driving distance for you. You could do that.
Yeah. I mean, I've been there before.
Have you been in the building? I've driven by it a million times. I've always sort of wanted to go in.
I'm not going to lie. I think one time you
can see it right there from 95.
Yeah.
You can see it right out. Yeah.
I think I know someone who works there. Anyway,
I bet you it's sweet. It's got to be sweet inside. It's got to be fantastic.
You just
inside.
walk around and people are just elbowing people and like pushing people.
There's steel chairs just like lying like up against the wall all over the place in case you need one.
Before we get out of here, what are you thinking very early on with Buffalo? Like where's your head
I think they're gonna. I think they have like the same sort of, because their job's attractive. They have the same sort of leeway that the Steelers and the Steelers and Ravens do to take their time. And so like, I think that's an empowering thing, being able to approach things that way, and it allows you to go through a full process and get to know people and all that different stuff. It's a little unlike, and the Giants obviously, were very aggressive and rightfully so to get John Harbaugh. The Falcons, rushed their process a bit at the end because they did plan to get Halfley and Minter in for second interviews to get Stefanski. And that was about not letting Stefanski get on a plane to go to Tennessee.
Yeah.
And then the same thing with the Titans and Dolphins. You know what I mean? Like, all four of the hires so far were a do not let the guy get on the plane scenario, right? Like, so with Halfley, he had planned to go from Miami to Tennessee the next day. The Dolphins got him locked in. Same thing with Saleh. Saleh had planned to go to Arizona the next day for a second interview, and the Titans get him locked in. So I think what the teams like Buffalo and Pittsburgh and Baltimore have is the flexibility and the leeway not to have to do that.
Right.
Which I think is an empowering thing.
My money's on.
But I would say, like, who would you hire if you were them?
Dave
Dayball starting. I've heard from people it probably won't be Dayball. The idea of Dayball is growing on me though.
Here's what I would say, and I got shouted down when I suggested this to someone, and someone else told me it was a good idea. Can you talk Daboll, who is an alpha, into coming back and being your head coach emeritus and just your wise, sage offensive coordinator and hiring a 30-year-old Davis Webb? Because Davis Webb played for Daboll. Davis Webb is played with Josh Allen. He's young. He's got a lot of upside.
I know if Webb wound up with Vegas, which is still, I think, a possibility, like Daboll and Cliff were the ideas for coordinator he had. So Daboll is on his list.
For sure. And so what about that? You bring in Davis Webb. Because it's
a risk.
It's a huge risk, but isn't it less so when you have Daboll and then let's say, I don't know, Albert.
I have to
take your veteran DC of choice that's out there.
Like, so maybe for Webb, and I'm trying to think, like, would it be Wink Martindale?
I don't know. I don't know if him and Daboll would get back into a room together. But...
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. They would have to, all right. Wink, Brian, you go to this room. We're going to lock the door for 2 hours.
Yeah.
If you guys both come out alive, then you both have the job. That's a great call. I'm just like looking at his history and who he would have. I mean, maybe that would be like bringing a Leslie Frazier back if he would do it. Who was in Buffalo with Davis. I'm just trying to think. Like, you don't see too many that line up. I mean, so you need your own.
You need your own version of Wade Phillips if you're going to do
like what Sean had in Wade Phillips. Which I mean, I think that could be a timing thing too. You know what I mean? Like that's why. I mean, Wink would make some sense. You know what I mean? Like, so he runs the offense, the defense everybody's looking to run. Could it be like a Denard Wilson, somebody like that, like who was in Tennessee the last couple of years? If you can get him not to go with John Harbaugh to New York, which I think Zach Orr, Denard Wilson, like all those guys are in play in New York.
Or if Grant Udinski gets the Browns job and Jim Schwartz doesn't want to stick around, you say, "Come on over, Jim."
Well, that would be. That would be it.
We're putting together an all-star rock band.
Should Buffalo look at Schwartz?
Yeah, I think everybody should.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Schwartz is another one who's grown on me because of like the different experiences he had. He won a Super Bowl in Philadelphia. Everywhere he's gone, the defense has gotten better. And if you look at it in Detroit objectively, that way he took over a winless team. Got them into the playoffs in year 3, had a young quarterback there that he helped develop in Matthew Stafford. And ultimately what took them down was something that was very easily explainable, which was they took way too many risks in the draft.
Yeah.
In fact, like I remember, so this is a great story. Let me look up that draft class so I have the names right. I don't want to, but I remember somebody calling me after the 2011 draft and saying to me, "You won't believe this, but this is the first time I've ever seen it. The Lions' first 3 picks are all off of our draft board for off-field reasons." And he'd never seen it before. And those 3 picks were, Nick Fairley, Titus Young, Mikel LaShore. And the Lions at the time were being like lauded, like, "Oh my God, they got these 3 guys." And you don't do that. But like when Jim Schwartz had been with Tennessee, Jeff Fisher was able to manage all of that, if you remember, right? Jeff, that became kind of like the house for the wayward souls there with like Pac-Man Jones and all the different Vince Young, all the different people they had there. And so like, I think you look at Jim Schwartz in Detroit and it's just easily explainable why it didn't work in the end. Right. But I just think he's got a shot, and he is like his bedside manner is the problem. He's a little arrogant. Like he's got a little bit of the Mike Zimmer problem, where he's going to go in and tell you exactly what you're doing wrong. But I do think like Cleveland having this much interest in him as a head coach and Baltimore having interest in him too. And Baltimore had him way back in the day. I think that should tell you a little something about who he is.
I agree. and we're going to see how it
But it's
all.
good. But if the Browns do it, it's going to be like they're going to want to burn the stadium down. So the fans are going to want to burn the stadium down. So,
But they never will because so many terrible things have happened and they haven't done it yet. So,
well, I don't know, man. Like the fire once, the river once caught on fire in Cleveland. So I think anything's possible in Northeast Ohio.
That is true.
True story. The Cuyahoga River caught on fire.
Only in Cleveland.
And that was not related to the flats burning down, which anyway, we could do a whole story about the woes of Cleveland. Love all my friends from there. I obviously have a ton of friends who grew up there, who live there now, and it's a great place but it's it's got a colorful history, especially when it relates to sports.
More Albert Brown's Cleveland stories on the next episode of the MMQB podcast. Just kidding. We're coming home from we're going to be coming home from the divisional round. So just a note,
if Conor can make it,
if I can make it,
we'll have a dinner recap.
Yeah, just a note. Okay. It might be Monday, Tuesday. We're supposed to get some inclement weather, snowstorms, but we'll keep everybody posted. Stay tuned for the next episode.